Hi there, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's November 21st. Today, we celebrate the botanist who named the very first plant for his mentor, Carl Linnaeus. And we celebrate the 160th birthday of one of the country's wealthiest orchidologists and the founder of the American Orchid Society. We'll hear some garden poetry on leaves and November. And we grow that garden library today with a book from one of my all-time favorite authors who wrote a history of vegetables. I'll talk about tidying up after the garden dies back, and we'll celebrate a sweet story about the very first television gardening show that debuted on the BBC 83 years ago today. But first, let's catch up on a few recent events. Brigit Strawbridge Howard has a new book out, and it's truly lovely. It's called Dancing with Bees. And here's the origin story for the book from her website. Brigit Strawbridge Howard was shocked the day that she learned she knew more about the French Revolution than she did about her native trees. The thought stopped her, quite literally, in her tracks. But that day was also the start of a journey, one filled with silver birches and hairy-footed flower bees, skylarks and rosebay willow herb, and the joy that comes with deepening one's relationship with place. Dancing with Bees is her charming and eloquent account of a return to noticing, to rediscovering a perspective on the world that had somehow been lost to her for decades, and to reconnecting with the natural world. With special care and attention to the plight of pollinators, including honeybees, bumblebees, and solitary bees, and what we can do to help them. Well, gardeners are going to love this book. If you're looking for a gift idea for the holidays for yourself or for someone else, this should be on your list. And then Mike Nowak shared a great post that just was so inspiring to me. It was called Your Garden Still Works in the Winter. And what I learned from Mike on this post is that by cleaning up in the fall, we're removing a garden's protective layers. I love that term. And also habitat, inadvertently hurting butterflies. Because at different stages of growth, butterflies can look like leaf litter. And I think gardeners, like doctors, mean to do no harm. So we still have much to learn and habits to change. And there were 3 key highlights that I wanted to share with you from Mike's post. First, every yard should have a rotting log or 2. Dead trees or rotting logs, also known as snags, are crucial habitat for a wide range of insects, the lifeblood of our ecosystem. Second, keep the falling leaves, plant stems, natural debris, and hiding places intact, not just in the fall, but throughout the year. Your garden is one place where it's okay to be messy, and you're providing important habitat for bees and butterflies and other beneficial insects. And then 3, it's extra important to leave the garden alone in the fall and throughout the winter. Heather Holmes says, in the spring, cut off the top of the old stems about 15 inches above the ground, leaving the flower stalk stubble. No further maintenance is required. Within a few weeks, the new growth from perennials hides the dry stems, and within a year or 2, the stems naturally break down. Anyway, there was lots of great information like this in this post, so I hope you give it a read. Now, if you'd like to check out these curated articles for yourself, you're in luck, because I share all of it with the listener community in the free Facebook group. So the next time you're on Facebook, just go up to the search bar, Type in the Daily Gardener Community, and our group will pop up and you can request to join. I'll admit you into the group, and then you'll see all of these wonderful garden articles in your Facebook feed, and you'll also be able to interact with other listeners of the show who share your passion for gardening. I look forward to meeting you in the group. Here's today's brevities. Today is the anniversary of the death of the Dutch botanist John Frederick Gronovius, who died on this day in 1762. Gronovius's story is inextricably bound to the Virginia botanist John Clayton. Clayton botanized in Virginia. In the early 1700s, Clayton sent specimens to Gronovius, both directly and indirectly, through the English naturalist Mark Catesby. Gronovius was a little in over his head as he attempted to make sense of the overwhelming amount of specimens from Clayton. So he did what most of us would do. He asked for help, and he got it from Carl Linnaeus. In a brazen move, Gronovius used Clayton's specimens and documentation to put together a Flora of Virginia in 1739. He published the work without notifying Clayton, and he certainly didn't get his permission before he started the endeavor. Other than the Clayton situation, Gronovius is remembered for the many plants he named. After seeing the twin flower, it was Gronovius who suggested naming the plant after Linnaeus. Without Gronovius, Linnaeus probably wouldn't have had a plant named for him during his lifetime. He was very modest about it, and bless his heart, Gronovius was sensitive to Linnaeus's need to keep the honorary naming low-key. So get this, Gronovius wrote, "The twin flower was a plant of Lapland, lowly, insignificant, disregarded, flowering but for a brief space, and named after Linnaeus, who resembles it." And that's how the twin flower became the only plant named for the father of taxonomy while he was alive, and it has the botanical name Linnea borealis. And another plant that Gronovius named was the genus Gerbera, which was named after the German botanist Traugott Gerber. That's how we get the Gerbera daisy. Finally, in 1739, it was Gronovius who combined the words for water and jug, hydro and angaeon. Put them together and you get hydrangea, or water jug. Who knew? And today is the birthday of the orchidologist Elbert Cameron Burrage, who was born on this day in 1859. Burrage had a passion for orchids, specifically rare orchids. In 1922, the Massachusetts Horticultural Society awarded him with the George R. White Medal for his outstanding collection of exotic orchid. 3 years later, he received the Lindley Medal from the Royal Horticultural Society of England. And Burrage was the founding president of the American Orchid Society, where he served for 8 years until his health no longer allowed him to work. Now, growing exotic orchids can be a costly hobby. It for sure was back in the 1800s. But luckily, Burrage was a self-made man, and his story is jaw-dropping. After getting a law degree from Harvard University, Burrage went to work for the Brooklyn Gaslight Company in the early 1890s. In a stroke of genius and probably luck, he discovered a little legal loophole that allowed his company to extend gas lines into the city of Boston. It earned Burrage a windfall, almost $1 million, and he went on to have a series of successful positions with other gas companies. His success was life-changing. Burrage enjoyed his wealth. He lived in a Gothic French chateau-style home. The exterior had nearly 50 gargoyles and over 300 bibliophiles, dragons, demons, cherubs, chimeras, and snakes, all carved into the exquisite stonework. And get this, when you walked into the house, the foyer opened into a large room with mahogany-covered paneled walls, a gold-gilded ceiling, stained glass windows, an imposing fireplace, and a huge crystal chandelier. Sounds like we're going to visit Beast from Beauty and the Beast. But here's the part that gardeners will love. Burrage had an orchid room. It was a glass-plated conservatory, complete with a wall lined with coral. It was an opulent home for his many exotic orchids. By 1922, Burrage had put together the most extensive private collection of tropical orchids in the world. He had over 1,200 plants. When Burrage died in 1931, he'd been president of the Massachusetts Horticultural Society for 10 years. The long-standing secretary of the society and garden writer, Edward Irving Farrington, paid tribute to Burrage, saying, "Probably no other man has done so much to popularize the orchid in America. The present prosperity of the American Orchid Society is due largely to his efforts." So thank you, Albert Cameron Burrage. And today we celebrate the birthday of the diplomat Harold Nicolson, who was born on this day in 1886. In 1930, Sissinghurst Castle, at least what was left of it, was bought by Harold Nicolson and his wife, Vida Sackville West, who restored the house and created the famous garden, which was given to the National Trust in 1967. In a letter to Harold, Vida once wrote, "You are my eternal spring." And on December 29th, 1946, Harold wrote in his journal, "Trying to convince Vida that planning is an essential element in gardening. She wishes just to jab in things that she has left over. The tragedy of the romantic temperament is that it dislikes form so much that it ignores the effect of masses." In Unearthed Words, here are some poems about leaves and about November. The first one is by Emily Dickinson. It is also November. The noons are more laconic, and the sunsets sterner, and Gibraltar lights make the village foreign. November always seems to me the Norway of the year. And here's a little poem from Elsie Brady called Leaves. How silently they tumble down and come to rest upon the ground, to lay a carpet rich and rare beneath the trees without a care, content to sleep, their work well done, colors gleaming in the sun. At other times they wildly fly until they nearly reach the sky, twisting, turning through the air till all the trees stand stark and bare, exhausted, drop to earth below to wait like children for the snow. And here's an excerpt from November by John Clare. So dull and dark are the November days. The lazy mist high up the evening curled. And now the morn quite hides in the smoke and haze. The place we occupy seems all the world. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, A Potted History of Vegetables by Lorraine Harrison. Well, first of all, let me just say that I am a huge fan of Lorraine Harrison. I believe I have all of her books. She is just an amazing garden writer, and I can't tell you how lovely it is to sit down on a cold winter's day with Lorraine Harrison and skim through a book like A Potted History of Vegetables. Lorraine has a quality to her writing that makes me feel like I'm reading a piece of art. And she specializes in something that I admire so much, which is giving us the little hidden gems and factoids about gardening that are often buried in history. And I love what the editor of Hortus, David Wheeler, wrote in the foreword of her book. He said, "My father grew lush fruit and vegetables for a hungry family in our garden following the Second World War, and ever since I have taken a keen interest in the history, provenance, cultivation, and eating of homegrown food. Even when working in London, where my garden was a single north-facing window box, growing, I recall, some excellent French tarragon. Alas, there was no Lorraine Harrison to guide me in those days. But gardeners finding themselves similarly lusting after fresh vegetables will glean much from these pages." Lorraine's A Potted History of Vegetables reacquaints us with the origins and nature of the world's produce. The pictures are beautiful reproductions of the finest 19th century botanical illustrations. There are fascinating facts and histories, and the book immerses you in the wonderful world of vegetables. For instance, carrots were once purple, and potatoes were originally kept as ornamentals rather than edible plants. Anyway, I love it. It's such a beautiful little book. And get this, you can get a used copy and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for under $1. That's amazing. Here's today's garden chore. As your garden dies back, it's time to tidy up. Right now, your garden is revealing the structures and the knickknacks that have served their purpose. You also get a real sense of the bones of your garden. Now, if you've had a hard time editing some of the items that you've placed in your garden over the years, take a moment right now to do a quick tidy up. During the gray days of November, items that are sun-faded are easier to spot. So are the broken pieces of pottery or furniture, and sometimes we just have to ask ourselves if some of the things in our garden are beyond saving. Is there a buildup of items that are no longer life-giving to you? And if they can live another day to help another gardener, by all means donate them. And if not, then let them go. And especially if you're thinking about adding structural improvements in the spring, like a new path or building a fence, now is the perfect time to go out, cull out the old, worn, or unhappy items that have accumulated in the garden. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day in 1936, the very first gardening TV show called In Your Garden was broadcast on BBC television. The show was hosted by Cecil Henry Middleton, who widely was known simply as Mr. Middleton. His dad was a head gardener, so Middleton grew up with a fantastic role model. Early on, Middleton became a gardening columnist for the Daily Mail, His journalist background helped him transition into Mr. Middleton, Britain's first celebrity gardener. Middleton presented In Your Garden from a garden at Alexandra Palace. The program was part of the lineup during the first month of the BBC's official television service, and it debuted on this day in 1936. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.